It began raining early this evening, the kind of heavy, relentless rain typical of the American Pacific Northwest, as if the sky itself could no longer bear the weight of unspoken burdens. In the small town called Eldridge, where a single main street cuts through and a lone police station stands with a faded neon-lit sign, everything lay silent. No one was out at this hour. No one except it. At precisely 1:13 a.m., a sudden scritch echoed through the cold tiled hallway of the police station. Tiny claws scraped the floor, creating a harsh, dry sound that stretched out like a knock from the darkness itself. Officer Michael Hayes, taking a sip of his now cold coffee, jumped. He turned, his hand reflexively brushing the gun at his hip. But what he saw was neither an intruder nor a drunkard nor a lost addict. It was a raccoon. Soaked, small, yet its eyes betrayed no fear. It stood there at the threshold, the dim glow from the overhead fluorescent flickering in its big, bright eyes, as though they were flashing an urgent signal. Clutched in its mouth was something dark. Michael inched forward. He recognized it. It was an old leather wallet, the type a man might carry. Its edges peeling, its stitching frayed. The animal lifted its head, its gaze fixed on him, as if imploring or delivering a message that human language could not convey. "What is this?" Michael murmured, but deep inside, a cold intuition began to coil down his spine. This was not a prank of nature. A raccoon, in the dead of night, waddled straight into a police station, carrying a wallet, and those eyes, so urgent, so human. Michael bent down and gently took the wallet from the raccoon's mouth. It didn't resist, just took a small step back, its eyes still locked on his, as if its task wasn't over yet. He wiped the wallet with the hem of his shirt, trying not to let his hand shake. It felt strangely heavy, not due to its physical weight, but because of the vague energy clinging to it, as though it contained a past still unrested. The wallet opened with a soft, rain-dampened creak of wet leather. Inside were a few crumpled bills, a faded ID card, and then his eyes frozen in place. In the narrow crease between the two leather layers, a small photo peeked out. Michael froze. The photo showed a middle-aged man with a gentle smile, his hand resting on the shoulder of an 8-year-old boy whose sky-blue eyes matched his own exactly. The photo was worn around the edges, but the memory felt as vivid as if it were just yesterday. It was him and his father, Thomas Hayes, the man who had vanished without a trace nearly 17 years ago. He collapsed into the chair, his fingers clenched white. This could not simply be some random lost item found by chance. It could not be. That wallet was the very object he had reported missing in the investigation file back then. On the very day his father disappeared, on a winter evening much like this one. Shock crashed into him like waves against stone. His body was transported back to the old house at the edge of town, where he used to lie awake by the window all night, waiting for a car that never returned. That old investigation had ended in limbo. No evidence, no explanation, just a man vanishing as if he had never existed. And now, somehow, that piece of evidence had returned, delivered by a wild creature. In a downpour, Michael looked at the raccoon again. It did not leave. It simply sat there, dripping wet, its deep, hollow gaze pulling him towards something greater, a mystery long unsolved. And in his heart, the questions were sharper than ever. Why now? Why me? And why tonight? Michael sat motionless at the interrogation table, his eyes never leaving the photograph in his hand, while his mind was torn between past and present. Rain still pounded steadily on the station's tin roof, but the scritch was gone. The raccoon had vanished. He stood, opened the door, and stepped onto the porch, scanning the darkness. There was no sign until a light scratch echoed from the side window. It returned. The raccoon stood there again, its eyes glinting under the damp yellow light, this time empty-mouthed, but it gently scratched the window pane, as though urging him on. Michael stepped forward, his heart pounding faster than he understood. He carried no weapon, no flashlight. A part of him said this was no longer a police matter. Instead, it was something personal, more profound, a calling from destiny. The creature turned and waddled across the flooded street without hesitation. Michael followed, each step heavy in the cold night. They passed empty streets, a closed bakery, a flickering gas station sign. The rain had eased, but the sky remained oppressively low. Unwilling to relinquish the town, the raccoon led him to the outskirts of Eldridge, where no streetlights remained, only leaning tree shadows like ghosts of time. At last, it stopped in front of an abandoned old warehouse. Michael knew the place. It had once served as the town's lumber storage and now lay in rusted ruin. The creature slipped through a gap between two fallen sheets of corrugated metal while Michael strained to push open a door that had hung for years. Inside, the air smelled of mildew and oxidized metal. Drips of water echoed like the ticking of a stopped clock that still haunted those who heard it. On the damp floor, Michael saw clear wet footprints, small raccoon tracks, and human shoe prints. Clearly someone had been here, very recently. His throat tightened as he moved deeper into the darkness. A strange noise sounded ahead, a gentle clang of metal, like a wind chime swaying in a slow breeze. Michael froze. His phone's torchlight swept across a small object at the threshold of the final room. A silver lighter. He crouched and picked it up. Etched on its lid was a hand-engraved monogram worn smooth by time, Th. Thomas Hayes. A bone-chilling wave washed over him, not from the warehouse's cold, but from the surge of memory his father's lighter always carried, a birthday gift from his mother before she passed. He remembered how his father used it every time he told him a story. And now it lay here, a few miles from the police station. After all those years, Michael raised his head. The raccoon waited at the doorway. It did not step in. It left the rest to him. He crossed the threshold, as though stepping through a gateway in time. There was no light, no human voice, but something was waiting for him in the darkness. Michael stood frozen before the pitch-black doorway, darker than any shadow, where not a single thread of light could slip through. All he could hear was the thunder of his own heartbeat pounding in his chest. He took a deep breath, raised his flashlight, and stepped inside. The door behind him creaked softly, then slowly swung almost shut, making a sound that made him glance back instinctively. The room inside was not large. Collapsed wooden shelves, moldy cardboard boxes, and at the far end, a figure. Michael raised his flashlight. A man, thin, hair and beard disheveled, both hands tied behind a post. His head slumped forward like all strength had long drained from him. But when the light fell on him, he stirred slightly. His eyes fluttered open, and his lips moved faintly. He was still alive. Michael rushed over, pulled a folding knife from his back pocket, and cut the rotted rope. The man collapsed into his arms, whispering words too faint to understand. "I never thought anyone would find me. Who are you? Why are you here?" Michael asked quickly, though a part of him already sensed something was off. The man lifted his head. His eyes were dull, but a strange clarity flickered inside them. "I was a witness to a smuggling operation 5 years ago. I worked with Thomas Hayes." Michael froze. "You knew my father?" The man nodded. "He knew too much. We were going to hand over documents to the FBI. But someone from the inside betrayed us. Thomas disappeared. I was hunted. I ran, until that night. Then I was taken again. But this time, they did not plan to let me live." Michael felt every piece in his mind spinning wildly, memories clashing like a storm. All these years, he had believed his father died in an accident, or maybe walked away from the weight of family, never once imagining something deeper, something darker. And now, the truth was standing in front of him, and it was vast, it was overwhelming. But before he could ask more, a faint metallic click echoed behind him. Instinct kicked in. Michael turned, flashlight slicing through the shadows, but nothing. Just the feeling that someone was there, very close, watching, waiting. Then came the gunshot. A bullet ripped past his shoulder, knocking the flashlight from his hand. The light spun and flickered across the floor. Michael shouted, dragging the man down behind a splintered wooden board. Blood was warm on his shoulder, but his mind stayed sharp. He grabbed his radio and yelled, requesting emergency backup. Armed suspect at the warehouse on the west end of Eldridge. No response. The signal was jammed. Another gunshot. Wood shattered, the smell of gunpowder mixing with rot and damp. Michael knew if he did not move, both of them would die here. And then, from the left side of the dark, a blur shot out like lightning. The raccoon. It leapt straight at the shooter, and a startled yell pierced the silence. A figure stumbled into view, a large man, recoiling as the creature lunged at his face. Michael seized the moment, rushed forward, and wrestled the gun from the attacker. They grappled, boots slamming against the floor, and after a few brutal strikes, Michael brought the man down. He turned, the raccoon was gone, as if it had come only to do exactly what was needed. Breathing hard, shoulders still bleeding, Michael held the gun tight. He dropped to his knees beside the man, cradling him like family, and then the final words came, soft as wind through trees. Your father, he did not abandon you. He died trying to protect you. Michael closed his eyes. For the first time in years, tears fell, not from pain, but from truth. The rain had stopped by the time backup arrived. Patrol car lights painted the crumbling warehouse in red and blue, flashing against rusted sheet metal. Michael sat on the steps, his shoulder bandaged, eyes distant, fixed on the forest to the west. The witness was taken away, exhausted, but alive. The attacker was in custody. It felt like an ending, but for Michael, it was only the beginning of something new, a chapter he never thought would open, all because of a creature. He returned to the station as dawn broke. The neon sign still flickered above the awning, and the front desk still bore the traces of the night before. But what made him stop was the item sitting quietly at the center of the desk. The wallet, placed neatly, dry, as if someone or something had wiped it clean and left it there like a farewell. Michael picked it up, that old leather smell, familiar. The photo was still inside, tucked between layers of memory. He looked at it longer than before, as if this time his father's eyes were truly looking back at him. By the window, a breeze stirred the curtain, and in that fleeting moment, Michael saw a small figure at the edge of the woods, still and silent, eyes catching the morning light, glistening like glass. It was there, the raccoon, the silent courier from the past. It did not approach, did not cry out or scratch at the door. It only stood there, as if confirming, you know now. You are ready. Michael stepped out onto the porch, but when he reached the spot, it was gone. Not a trace, only the memory of those eyes, warm, knowing, like a piece of the past, breathing beneath rain-soaked fur. And inside him, the question still echoed, unanswered. How did it know, and why choose me, on that night? No one could explain why a raccoon would act like that. No science could account for the urgency in its eyes, or the way it led him at the exact moment it mattered most. But maybe some things live beyond language, beyond species. Sometimes, salvation does not come from people, but from a small creature carrying the instincts of the wild in the heart of someone who understands. Michael now knew. Memories do not die. Truth does not disappear. They just lie quietly, waiting for someone brave enough to open the door that has stayed shut for too long. And that night, the door opened, not with sirens, but with the silent steps of a wild animal with the heart of a man.